All right, today we're looking at 4-way panel clamps. These are Clampzilla from Woodpecker. So we'll look at the ins and outs of this particular panel clamp and see how they work and testing them out, making these oversized panels. Stick around. Now, if you've been woodworking long enough, you've certainly ran into the problem where you had trouble aligning the joints at the center of a large panel. And that's exactly the problem that panel clamps aims to solve. So if you're a mid-sized shop or even a serious hobbyist, I think it might make sense to look into getting panel clamps. Whether that's these Clampzilla or some of the other versions offered is up to you, but it really saves you from a headache of having alignment issues at the center of the panel. Now, a 4-way clamp simply means it's got traditional pressure to close the joints, but it also applies vertical pressure to prevent any alignment issues on the top and bottom of the panel. We're working with a 38-inch panel clamp today. They're also offered in an 18-inch version and a 50-inch version. The 18s might be good if you do a lot of cutting boards. The 50-inch, on the other hand, might just be reserved for oversized projects like dining tables. For most projects, I think the best bet is going to be the 38-inch length. It's a pretty solid clamping mechanism with a lot of stainless steel and then powder-coated bars. Just decide if you want to start with a pair of them or go straight for a full set of 4. Some people think you have to open up this clamp to use it, and you certainly can do that with these quick hitch pins, but there's also a way to slide the boards into the clamps without ever opening it up. Well, let's do a bit of a test fitting without the glue just to see how these panel clamps are going to work for us. We'll get those boards loaded into the clamps. It's always nice to slide your boards in and do a little test fitting, and then you can break the glue out for the real thing. And luckily there's enough adjustment in this threaded rod that you don't even have to take these panel clamps apart. You can just go ahead and spin them on from that position, and you can see it starts tightening the joints together and flattening everything out. Yeah, that's got the joints nice and flush now. So far there was just one joint line that wasn't pulled absolutely flush by just using the panel clamps. I'll have a little F-style clamp handy in case that's an issue with the actual glue up, but so far really impressed with how flat these panels are staying just with these 4 panel clamps. One thing I do notice is there's nothing to automatically center these clamping pads across the thickness of your stock. Now, this may be an extreme case because I'm using 1.5 inch thick white oak for these panels, but what it means is as you tighten this up, you have to kind of center this little clamping pad to go ahead and engage the clamps. Now, that's probably not much of an issue if you're doing a more standard glue up like 3/4 or 1 inch thick stock. All right, with the dry fitting a success, we'll go ahead and pull these boards out and go ahead and do the full wet glue up. I feel like I've got a sense for how these panel clamps work, and if you set them up into that kind of kickstand mode and back the threaded rod all the way out, it seems like the clamps will just hold in a high position, which makes it really convenient to load those clamps. So we'll go ahead with the real deal here and bring the boards into position and just make sure that we align our builder's triangle as we bring the boards into the panel clamps. Load another of these big planks into position, and I'm just putting glue on one edge of these boards because I can apply just the right amount with this little disposable roller. And we'll slip that last board into position. And once your boards are in position, you can go ahead and just drop these clamps down. Okay, we'll start running these clamps in and developing the 4-way pressure to close up these panels. And we'll just roughly center that clamping pad on the thickness of the stock as we bring that together. Unlike parallel clamps that you might just have on one side of the panel, you can really snug these clamps up pretty good without fear of buckling or bowing your panel. And that same singular joint line that I had trouble with in dry fitting has done the same thing, so I'll just loosen the panel clamp slightly and get this single F clamp in place, and that should take care of the problem, and we'll re-engage the panel clamp. One concern I've heard people express is that they wouldn't be able to get 4 panel clamps on before the glue dries. And even with this large, heavy panel, I've been able to easily get this thing assembled and clamped up, and the glue is still completely wet. And that just seemed to automatically align those edges as we tightened the clamps. Looks like the glue wipes pretty quickly off the bars, so not a big deal with that. Of course, we'll want to see how the panel came out, so we'll take a look at that and pop the glue off. Looks like it's nice and flush. Pop quiz, guys. Anybody know what the I's and O's are for right on the joint line of all my glue ups and panels? If you know the answer to what the I's and O's are for, leave me a comment down below. Well, that's about as flat as it gets right out of the clamps, so I'm happy with that. I think panel clamps are a great accessory to have around the shop. They certainly solve that common issue of misaligned edges at the center of your panels. Beyond the stated width capacity that your panel clamps can handle, I think it's also important to look at the thickness that you can use. And for this particular model, you can actually use panels that are as thin as 5/8 inch all the way up to slabs that are 4 inch. If you do find yourself wanting to do panels that are thinner than 5/8, there's a simple workaround just using scraps in the shop. All right, guys, there's my rundown on the Clampzilla panel clamps from Woodpeckers. I hope there's some insight here that'll help you make a decision on what panel clamps are best for you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.